Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Very happy to be here today. I had a couple of questions from a client of mine about why they were lifting less than they did last week, the week before, and so forth. Now, this doesn't necessarily go to, if you guys are familiar with this channel, you know we talk about the tonal a lot. We've been talking about the Vitruvian on a recent video. This can go for anything, whether it's the tonal, the Vitruvian, whether it's for the gym. It doesn't matter. If you train, some of these things that we're going to talk about may have to do with why you're not able to lift the same amount as you did the week prior or the month prior, whatever the case might be, okay? Why you're lifting less, all right? The first thing I want to talk about is why it's important to keep notes. The reason why it's important to keep notes, what your rep ranges are, what your movements are with those rep ranges, how much weight you're lifting with those rep ranges, all of these things. What was your sleep like before? These notes are gonna help you guys figure out why certain things might be happening. The first thing I wanna focus on is, have you been eating less? If you are in a severe cut, you very well likely might not have the energy or the willingness to push yourself, okay? Keep that in mind. When you're cutting down, you're gonna feel like garbage a lot of the time, especially if it's a severe cut. If you're not used to cutting down, if you're not used to denying yourself the calories and the energy that you need, even if it's not a severe cut, you may feel the effects in the gym. You're gonna have to push through that. I recommend pre-workout, I recommend sleeping more, stuff like that. Remember, keep notes if possible. Try not to be lazy, keep those notes. The next thing is, what is your sleep looking like? If you didn't sleep well the night before, don't expect, even with pre-workout sometimes, that your energy levels are gonna be the same. You may not be lifting the same. So that might be a reason why you're lifting less weight. You just don't have that energy to give. Try to make sure your sleep is on point. And if you don't sleep well the night before, I personally recommend don't take a nap during the day. You might feel inclined to take a nap during the day. It all depends on you, right? But go to the gym anyway, exert yourself as much as possible, and stay awake throughout the entire day. Go to sleep when you're supposed to, or try to go back to sleep when you're supposed to, so that you can actually force yourself into sleeping at night. Personally, I tell people this all the time. I have to fight for my sleep. If I don't train that day, I do not sleep well. So I try to make sure that I train every single day, because I'm literally fighting for my sleep. Because if I don't train, I'm not sleeping. The next thing is, was your warm-up quality the same as it was the day, the week, the session prior? Now, a lot of people, they don't warm up, and that could be a severe problem. There's a lot of people out there who don't believe that warm-ups count or help you during your training. I'm not one of those people. Warm-ups are very, very important to me. Ideally, personally, I recommend to my clients 3 warm-up sets, slowly increasing the weight up to your working set weight every single time you train. Now, of course, it's going to depend on how much time do you have to train and so forth. Everybody's circumstances are different. So don't expect, if you have no time, to be able to take advantage of that warm-up. But if you have the time, take advantage of that warm-up, because if you warm up properly, you will be able to lift much more weight on your working sets than when you can't warm up properly, okay? That's my personal experience. That's been the experience of my clients when I speak to them about this type of scenario, okay? A lot of times the client will come back to me and be like, wow, I warmed up and my working set was much, much better. Yes, that is very, very likely to happen, okay? So make sure you get a quality warm-up when possible. Are you doing the same body part during that set that you were pushing less on? Are you doing the same body part but with a different movement? So for example, you might be doing chest with a barbell press, right? But now you put the same amount of weight on, but you're doing chest flies, and you're thinking, well, it's my chest, I should be able to lift the same amount. Absolutely not. Every single movement that you do, when you use a variation of another movement, even if it's the same body part, if you're doing preacher curls compared to standing curls, you're not gonna be able to lift the same amount of weight, okay? That's just how it works. Every angle change, every different movement you use, even if it's for the same body part, is going to cause you to be able to lift less or lift more based on those variations. So keep that in mind. Are you using orange to orange comparisons? If last week you pushed 200 pounds on a bench press, but now you're trying to do 200 pounds on a fly movement, and you're wondering, why am I not lifting the same weight? That is why. You're not going to be able to do the same because it's not the same movement, even though it's working the same exact muscle group, okay? Every slight change in angle, the way you stand, even the seat position on the movement you're doing, the seat position will cause you to lift less or more, every little thing. So if you're not comparing orange to orange, apples to apples, that might be why you're not lifting the same amount, or why maybe you're lifting more than last week because you changed something. Notes, notes, notes. Very, very important, okay? Are you focusing on the same rep range to weight range ratio? Normally when you're lifting, you're using a heavier weight, you're doing less reps, okay? You're using a lighter weight, you're doing more reps. Make sure your rep range and weight ratio is the same. Don't go into this saying, oh, last week I was doing this and I was doing this, but now you're using a different weight and rep range. It's not going to be the same. Always try to use apples to apples, orange to orange comparisons. Don't compare yourself to something when you've done a variation and you're wondering, oh, well, why is it different? Are you using a different machine that works the same body part? Make sure that everything is the same, or else you can't compare it. So if you're using a different machine, if you're using a chest press machine, for example, and that chest press machine is slightly different than the chest press machine next to you, but this time you got one guy taking over your other machine, so you have to use the other one, it's not going to be the same weight necessarily. The slightest difference, leg press machine. On one machine, it might look very similar, but if it's a different model and the angle of the plate is different, that's going to affect how much weight you can push. It will, trust me. Always use machine to machine, apples to apples comparisons. Another thing I want to mention is how to kind of get past the mental block and the feeling of you failing when this type of thing happens. Focusing solely on the weight and the reps will not really help you, because depending on the movement, depending on the angle, you're going to be able to naturally lift less or more. Rather than focusing on the amount of weight and the amount of reps for 1 or 2 given sessions, look at your overall average. And that's going to be a little difficult if you're constantly changing movements, if you're using too much variation in your training. Some people, they'll do too much variation. They're doing one set of this, and then the next set they're doing this, all in the same day. It's not necessary. Try to keep things consistent overall with your training, and only change things when you see that a change is needed. Very, very important. But focus on your overall average. Are you progressing within that specific movement? Focus on that. That's what's really important. Are you getting stronger during that movement? Don't compare that movement to another movement and say, oh, I can't lift the same. Are you consistently doing better? Are all the movements overall getting easier? Because if so, you're getting stronger and therefore you're making progress. And keep in mind, when you're looking at your progress, you need to be patient with your body. Sometimes it might take a couple of weeks to maybe a month before you see any real progress. Just keep drilling down that movement, perfect everything you can to the best of your ability. And then maybe after a month, if you haven't seen any progress, try to look at what you're doing and see why it might not work. Do you have to lower the weight a little bit, do some more volume for a period of time? Focus on it later on, but give yourself the time to grow. Over a period of 1 or 2 sessions, you're not going to see any insane gains, depending on who you are, what your training style is like, and where you are right now in your training. Just consistently try to do better than your last session. And again, I recommend trying to keep your movements consistent. And if you're not going to keep your movements consistent, keep a detailed log of when you did this movement last, so that the next time you do that movement, you can see, have you done better? All right, guys, I hope this video was helpful. Be safe, talk soon, and if you need help with training, feel free to reach out to me. The information is in the description. Have a great day.